You think Eastern patience means sitting around doing nothing while the world passes you by? You're wrong, and that misunderstanding is costing you everything. Here's what I've found after studying both the most ambitious Western entrepreneurs and the most effective Eastern strategists. They're not actually playing different games. They're playing the same game, but one side learned something the other forgot. Most people think patience and ambition are opposites. You either want something badly and chase it relentlessly, that's Western ambition, or you sit back, accept what comes, and let life happen to you. That's Eastern patience. Binary choice. Pick one. But that's not actually what either of them is. I know you've tried the ambition path. You've set goals, created deadlines, pushed harder, woke up earlier, worked longer nights. You felt the momentum. You felt like you were winning. And then something happened. Energy dropped. Burnout crept in. Or worse, you achieved the goal and felt emptier than expected. Most people diagnose this as a personal failing. I need more discipline. I need better systems. I need to want it more. That's not the real problem. The real reason your ambition burns out is this. You're mistaking force for power. Force is what happens when you push against what is. Ambition becomes force when it's divorced from timing. You set a goal, and then you attack it with sheer willpower, regardless of the actual conditions around you. You're like someone trying to swim upstream in rapids. Yes, you're making effort. Yes, you're using energy. But you're working against the current instead of with it. Power is what happens when you align with what is, not against it. This is where the East understood something we forgot. In Chinese philosophy, there's a concept called Wu Wei. Don't let the foreign term intimidate you. It just means non-forcing action. It's what happens when you stop trying to hammer reality into submission and instead become sensitive to the actual shape of the situation. You notice where the resistance is, and instead of pushing harder into the resistance, you find where the opening is. This isn't passive. This isn't about accepting less or lowering your standards. This is about timing. Think about judo or aikido. The practitioner doesn't have more strength than the attacker. They have something better. They understand that power doesn't come from fighting the force. Power comes from redirecting it. The attacker brings momentum. The master uses that exact momentum against them. The outcome is decided not by who's stronger, but by who understands the timing of the force. Western ambition is like the attacker, all raw force, all effort, hoping that sheer intensity creates results. Eastern patience is like the master, sensitive to timing, aligned with momentum, using the minimum necessary force at the exact right moment. And here's where it gets practical. This isn't theoretical. This is how the world actually works. Consider compound interest. A person who saves $100 a month for 40 years beats a person who saves $500 a month for 10 years. Not because they tried harder, because they aligned with time. They understood that small, consistent action plus timing plus the invisible force of compounding are exponential results. The person grinding hard for 10 years is using force. The person patiently compounding for 40 years is using power. But there's a problem most people don't realize. They think this means being passive. They hear patience, and they think it means waiting, sitting still, hoping things work out. That's the second hidden layer. Eastern patience isn't about inaction, it's about alignment of action. Let me be specific. In business, I've watched two founders chase the same market opportunity. Founder A launches immediately. Big marketing push, aggressive sales, working 18-hour days. Founder B waits 6 months, refines the product, builds relationships, understands the customer at a deeper level, waits for the market moment. 3 years later, Founder B is the market leader. Not because they worked harder, because they worked when it mattered. They were patient with the preparation. But when the window opened, they moved faster than anyone expected. Western culture romanticizes the person who launches first. Move fast and break things. Fail fast. It's become gospel. But what it actually optimized for is action, regardless of timing. And what gets left behind is the person who was 20% less busy, but 400% more effective because they made every move count. This is the real reason high performers often look like they're doing less. They're not. They're just eliminating waste. They're not pushing on locked doors. They're waiting for doors to open, and then they move through them with total commitment. So here's the practical distinction. Patience with ambition looks like this. You have a goal. You're hungry for it. But before you force it, you ask, what's the natural timing here? What am I fighting against? Where am I pushing? Then you make a shift. You stop pushing. You start preparing. You get good. You get better. You understand the landscape. You build relationships. You notice what's emerging. And then, and this is the critical part, when the moment comes, you move with absolute intensity. You don't hesitate. You don't second guess. You move. But you only move when the conditions are aligned. Most ambitious people have this backwards. They move with intensity constantly. They're always sprinting. So when the actual opportunity appears, they're already burned out. Or they make the move from a depleted place instead of a powerful place. The patient person is conserving energy. Not out of fear, out of strategy. They're rested, they're clear, they're ready. So when they move, it's from power, not from desperation. This changes everything about how you work, how you negotiate, how you build relationships, how you pursue goals. Consider bamboo. It's a perfect metaphor for what we're talking about. Bamboo doesn't show growth for the first 4 years. It looks like nothing is happening, but underground it's building an elaborate root system. Then, in year 5, it grows 90 feet in 6 weeks. Western ambition sees year 1 and says, "This isn't working, move to something else." Eastern patience says, "The roots aren't visible yet, but they're being built." Year 5 is the same for both approaches. The bamboo grows, but only one of them stayed to see it. Now, I want you to notice something in your own life right now. Where are you forcing? Where are you pushing against a door that isn't opening? Where are you in constant sprint mode, thinking that's what ambition requires? That's not ambition. That's anxiety wearing ambition's costume. Real ambition is patient enough to wait for alignment. Real patience is ambitious enough to move decisively when the moment comes. The difference between these two feels almost invisible day to day. But over years, it's the difference between burnout and exponential growth, between shallow success that empties you and deep success that fills you, between the person who has to push all the time and the person who things seem to flow toward. The flow isn't magic. It's not luck. It's strategic patience combined with instant readiness. Here's what I want you to do starting today. Notice your own ambition. For the next week, every time you're in pursuit mode, pause and ask one question. Am I moving toward this, or am I pushing against something? Moving toward feels like alignment. Pushing against feels like friction. That feeling in your body tells you everything. If it feels like force, you're probably fighting timing. If it feels like flow, you're probably aligned with it. When you notice friction, don't push harder. Step back. Ask, what am I missing? What am I fighting? What if I prepared instead of pushed? And when you notice flow, when something feels aligned and natural and powerful, that's when you commit everything. That's when you're not patient anymore. That's when you're fully alive and moving. This isn't about becoming passive. It's about becoming intelligent about your energy, about learning when to hold and when to strike, about understanding that patience isn't the opposite of ambition. It's what makes ambition actually work. Western culture optimized for speed and missed the variable that matters, timing. Eastern wisdom preserved it. You don't have to choose between ambition and patience. You need both. And when you have them together, when you're patient with preparation and fierce with execution, when you're sensitive to timing and committed to effort, that's when you become unstoppable. Not because you're working harder than everyone else, because you're working when it matters. And that changes everything. If this helped, hit like, subscribe, and keep it simple. See you tomorrow.